About 3 weeks ago, the American rappers Ice Spice and Latto teamed up together to release their very first collaboration, titled Gyatt. So Gyatt is the Gen Z slang exclamation for admiring someone's nice posterior, aka their booty. So that means the song's focal point is all about bums. But this is not a new concept by any means. For decades, we have had many songs that mocked big butts, celebrated them, or even made them the punchline. But at the height of the booty obsession, it went beyond music. People were literally using their bums as tools to build fame, and it worked. The mystery over whether these butts were real or not is part of what fueled the craze. I mean, Kim Kardashian's butt has broken the internet more times than I can count within the last decade. And Nicki Minaj's butt, on the other hand, has been debated relentlessly. People want to know if it's real or if it's not real. But what makes the song Gyatt? Sorry, I have to say it that way when I say the word Gyatt. Like, you can't just say Gyatt, you gotta say Gyatt. But what makes this song so interesting is the fact that it's not just another I love big butts anthem, because we've already had that. It's coming at a moment where the cultural obsession with big butts seems to be on the decline. So it's kind of ironic that this collab drops now, when it seems like the butt economy, as I like to call it, is struggling. So today's video is all about booties. I can't believe I'm saying that, but you know what? I'm here for it. We will discuss the origins of this obsession, how our butts went from being taboo to trendy, and why the butt economy is declining at a rapid rate. And by the end of today's video, I hope we can answer this question that's been twerking in the back of everyone's mind. Get what I did there? Twerking because you twerk with your butt. Anyways, the question is, why are we so obsessed with? Let's get into this video. Yeah. One, the origins of the obsession. Okay, so let's first talk about where this obsession with our butts came from. I'm gonna use different words to describe butts throughout this video just because there's so many words out there like booty, bum, Gyatt, bunda. I think that's pretty much it. Basically, all of those words mean butt, so just so we're all on the same page. Our booties are actually the product of millions of years of evolution. Humans are the only primates that have a booty that look like that. Maybe yours doesn't exactly look like that, but we're not supposed to all look the same, so amen. Because when we evolved to walk upright, our pelvis had to shift to support us, and that structural change created the rounder, fuller look that we recognize today. It's the shape of our pelvis that controls the shape of our booties, essentially. But the muscle that really makes our booty stand out is the gluteus maximus. It's one of the biggest muscles in the human body, and it's what gives our butt most of its shape. That's why whenever you're watching gym content on how to build your booty, they're like, yo, we're gonna focus on our glutes. So that's exactly what they're talking about. They're talking about the biggest muscle in your bunda. Without it, we wouldn't be able to climb stairs, to sprint, or even to stand upright. Other primates, such as monkeys and apes, their gluteus maximus is way smaller compared to ours. So that's why their butt looks flat. They don't have the round shape that we do. They don't got the perkiness to it. But it's not just this muscle too. Fat plays a huge role as well. And of course it does. Humans store way more body fat than most primates, and a lot of it sits right on our hips and butts. Anthropologists think that that's because our oversized brains burn through energy like crazy. So having fat in our butts is basically meant to help us when times are rough, when you don't have access to food or water or anything. The fat that you store on your booty is meant to, help you survive. So our butts were not designed to look good in apple bottom jeans or bodycon dresses or the scrunchy leggings. They weren't meant for that. They were designed to keep us alive. But of course, as humans are, we have turned survival traits into beauty standards. But this is not a recent phenomenon. We didn't magically wake up one day and decide we love booties so much. That did not happen. From the looks of it, it seems like there has always been this obsession even before we discovered written language. One of the earliest symbolic representations of exaggerated hips and booties is none other than than the Venus of Willendorf. This figurine, only about 4 inches tall, was dug up in Austria in 1908. She's one of the oldest pieces of art we've ever found. But what stands out about this figurine so much is the way she looks, which you will definitely understand what I'm talking about if you're looking at the image right now. Hopefully I can show it on YouTube because I don't know, they might think that it's inappropriate. If I can't, you can just search it up and you can see the image for yourself. It's everywhere. But if you're listening on Spotify, let me just explain it. Basically, everything is exaggerated. She does not have a face, but her boobies are exaggerated, her stomach is exaggerated, the hips are wide, and the booty is there too. So everything is just exaggerated basically. She's just a very curvy piece of art. It's essential to mention that there have been over 200 figurines found from all over the world, and they all have these same features. The big stomach, the big tia temeras. Tia temeras mean boobs, by the way. I saw some of y'all are confused when I say that. I just use a lot of random slang, so sorry if y'all are confused, but that's what it means. But also the big hips, the big butt. All of these figurines, they have that same look. But the Venus of Willendorf just happens to be the most popular. I just find it extremely interesting that these figurines have been found from all over the world, but they still share the same features. So it looks like at a certain point in history, this was the global beauty standard, regardless of where you were from. It seems like they were praising this bigger look, and I'm sure there's many reasons for it. I'm assuming that maybe because food was harder to get back in the day, so if you were able to eat a lot of food, then that meant that you were rich and you had status, and you were also able to bear children. But now, since there's so much access to food, well, it depends where you live, unfortunately, because some people, of course, we know are struggling and starving around the world. But because in certain countries, food is still a privilege, but it's so common, like you can just walk down, go to your grocery store, buy some food, and you have some food. So now, because we have so much access to food, they're like, you're a big back if you're eating all the food that you have access to. That's like, it's just interesting how these standards change over time. The Venus of Willendorf is dated back to 25,000 to 30,000 years ago. So that's like around 23,000 to 28,000 BCE. That's the Upper Paleolithic, a period that was categorized by the Hunter-Gatherer Society. So that's a long time ago. That's what I'm trying to get y'all to understand. When people carved these figurines, Earth was in the middle of the last ice age. This was a time when Earth still had huge glaciers covering whole continents. We had the woolly mammoths, we had those saber-toothed cats, those tigers or cats, whatever, that have those 2 long teeth in front of them. This was a very long time. Those animals have long been extinct. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to watch the movie Ice Age. That's a fun movie, but also it's educational too if you don't know what I'm talking about. But watch that movie. That's gonna explain the Ice Age to you a bit better. Well, not really. Just watch the movie after you finish my video, of course. But what I'm trying to get at is that the Venus of Willendorf goes way back. Literally tens of thousands of years ago. It goes way back. So the size of your body, the size of your booty has always been a topic of discussion, and clearly it was a source of inspiration for back in the day, and it still is to this day. And because this figurine is so old, no one actually knows what it's supposed to represent and what the meaning is behind it. But of course, there are theories. Some scholars believe that the Venus of Willendorf was basically like a prehistoric prayer for fertility. You know, big boobs, big butt, big stomach, all of that is associated with being pregnant. A woman's ability to get pregnant and to carry that child to term and give birth has always been a big deal, especially back in the day. I mean, they literally thought that infertile women were witches back in the day. They were stoning them, drowning them, just because they couldn't pop out kids. And throughout history, motherhood has been perceived as the pinnacle of femininity. So if you weren't popping out babies or making motherhood your whole identity, then you were considered a weirdo. In some cultures, even to this day, it is seen as a big deal to be able to get pregnant and to have kids. So it does make sense that the Venus of Willendorf could have been like a fertility goddess, because I'm sure back in the day, there was more pressure on women to have children, because that's the only way to continue the human population. Another theory is that these Venus figurines They were prehistoric corn. Yes, you heard that right. Basically the equivalent of a Playboy magazine, but for cavemen back in the day. Mostly men came up with this theory, so do what you want with that information. But here's the thing, that interpretation probably says more about the biases of those early scholars than what the actual figurines meant. But it is a possible theory because we really don't know, why these figurines were created in the first place. One of the major theories too is the survival theory, which I've already sort of touched on earlier in this video. Basically, it's when you're thicker, when you got more meat on you, you have a higher chance of survival. That's why that was considered the beauty standard. So that does make sense, and that is a valid explanation as to why this figurine was created. But here's where things start to get a little bit more complicated. When we fast forward to modern history, but still a very long time ago, we see this shift from body ideals being all about survival to becoming a spectacle. I could talk for hours about the Venus of Willendorf because I feel like it's a very important and one of the first representations of body image in society as a whole. And I feel like it's just really interesting to, dive into it just to see where this obsession with certain body ideals came from. But I really want to bring up Sarah Baartman in this video. In the 1800s, she was paraded around Europe under the name as the Hottentot Venus. And her body, especially her butt, became an object of fascination and ridicule. They called her the Hottentot Venus because European settlers used the term Hottentots to describe the nomadic people of the Khoikhoi tribe in South Africa. Fun fact, they are one of the world's oldest tribes. So Sarah, she was a Khoikhoi woman from South Africa who was trafficked into slavery and brought to London in the early 1800s. Crowds paid money just to gawk at her body, and quite frankly, she was just treated as a wild animal, not a human, and this was all because of her bum. Just like with the Venus figurines, people were not asking what her body meant in her culture or to her. They were projecting their own biases and obsessions onto it. And that pattern of objectification hasn't gone away. It's just evolved. And after being treated like absolute garbage, Sarah passed away at the young age of 26 years old. And scholars believe it was due to smallpox. But even after she had passed away, French naturalist Georges Cuvier, he dissected her body, preserved her genitals and her brain in jars, and kept them on display in Paris until 1974. That's a long time, but also not a long time ago when you think about it. Well, it's 2025 now, 1974. I can't do math, so I'm not even gonna try to do math. But if you think about it, it's not even that long ago. Your parents might have been born in 1974. So after her passing, she was still on display for about 150-ish years. Yeah, she was still on display and her body was not laid to rest until 2002. And this was all because of her butt. So the condition that they believed that Sarah had was steatopedia, which is basically when there's a large accumulation of fat on your butt. And that's why she looked the way she looked, yet people had no compassion, they had no empathy for her, and they just paraded her around Europe like she was an animal. And when you think about it, Sarah Baartman is kind of like the Venus figurines. The way Sarah was viewed set the precedent for how women's bodies are viewed, especially Black women's bodies in today's culture. This obsession with butts has not stopped. Go online right now, I'm sure you're gonna see some booty cheeks. The way that Sarah's body, especially her butt, was exhibited, dissected, and debated in Europe is very similar to how Black women's bodies are hypersexualized and hypervisible in pop culture today. Whether it's in music videos, Instagram comments, TV shows, movies, you name it, it's happening. This is why I wanted to bring up some history about booties, because history tends to always repeat itself, even if it's in different ways, which you will see in this video. It's worth mentioning that Sarah's life was based on contracts, cages, and the so-called scientific studies, which brings up important questions about ownership and agency, even in this day and age. Today, women are often told that they are choosing surgery, that no one is forcing them to do it. And by doing it, they will feel more confident and empowered. Or we are told that monetizing our bodies is the key to success. Or we are told that monetizing our bodies is empowerment and we are pushed to do that because we control what we post, and in a way, we are reclaiming our sexuality. But it's worth questioning, as it is worth questioning everything, understanding how much of that is real agency versus responding to the same pressures of desirability and exploitation. Sarah's story is dark. There is honestly so much to unpack, but if I were to do that, we would be here all day. What I really want to dig into is how this obsession with butts has evolved in today's culture and economy. So let's move on to the next section. Part 2, from taboo to commodity, the rise and peak. Since you've made it this far into the video, you might as well subscribe, because what are you waiting for? A lot of y'all be watching and not subscribing, so I'm just like, what's the issue? Subscribe. Okay, so I wanted to get some of y'all's opinion on this topic before moving forward, so this is what I asked y'all on Instagram. Do you think butts are treated more like a symbol of beauty, a sexual object, a cultural trend, or a product for sale? The majority of you, 73%, said a sexual object, which doesn't surprise me because I remember reading this article, like I literally cannot find it, which is so aggravating, but I remember reading it and it was talking about how when humans learned that they could hit it from the back during intercourse, that's when the butt was seen as a sexual object and it was more obsessed over, if that makes sense. But don't quote me because I don't remember where the study was from, but I just remember seeing it. So it's somewhere in my head. I don't know. Then only 6% said a symbol of beauty, which is pretty telling. I honestly wasn't expecting that answer to get a lot of votes in the first place, but maybe, and this is a big maybe some people do see it as something that's beautiful. I'm sure there are people out there who do see butts as beautiful, but for the most part, I don't know about it. Then 13% of you said it's a cultural trend. You know, one decade they're ignored, the next decade they're worshipped, and then suddenly people move on to the next thing, or it's going back to not being worshipped. We will talk about that in this section, but that's very interesting. Then 8% said a product for sale, which is so real, especially when you think about the BBLs. These BBLs killing y'all. Then the fitness industry as well. Like we have all of these fitness programs, or we even have clothes as well, like those scrunchy leggings. There's just like so many clothes and products out there that are meant for your butt to improve the shape of it. Like it's just all out there. So really it's a whole thing. It's literally a whole industry. That's why I call it the butt economy, because it's a whole economy. Then one of you swiped up, so I wanted to read what you said. Kamalaki, hope I'm saying the name right, forgive me. But he said that, I'm Dominican, but I'm not a butt guy. Okay, sir. In the Dominican Republic, if a girl doesn't have a good butt, she's invisible. But here in Mexico, it's more balanced. I wanted to read this comment because when we say thin is in, which has been a reoccurring term or saying that I've been hearing more frequently this year, when we say that, that is not meant to describe the whole world. It's not meant to be a global beauty standard, because simply it's not. Other places in the world value different things. Some of them like the booties, some of them don't. But at the same time, I will say that American media, they have so much influence that when celebrities, athletes, and even influencers push a certain aesthetic, it spreads way beyond the US. The world doesn't revolve around America, sorry, I'm not trying to say that, but when they do set certain standards, it does become popular. Not all over the world, but definitely it does expand beyond the US. But thank you all so much for participating in these polls. It always makes the videos interesting. So if you want to be part of future polls, make sure you follow me on Instagram. It's NK's World with 2 D's, because why not? It's because NK's World with 1 D was taken, so I had to do 2 D's instead, but it's okay. So in this section, I want to talk more about modern examples of our cultural obsession with butts. I want to start in the 90s because I was thinking of taking it back a bit further, but I think it's going to be a really long video if I do that. And also the 90s is a time where I feel like a lot of us remember, or we're at least more aware of it, so I think it's smarter to start there. And also it's a time when we started to see the shift of having no booty to having a booty being praised. So let's dive in, y'all. I mean, I could always do like a deep booty deep dive or like a whole timeline or something. If y'all want it to happen, I can make it happen. But let's just start in the 90s for this section. Some would argue that in the 90s, having a big bum was not the trend at all, especially considering we had so many popular runway models become famous during this era. This includes Naomi Campbell, Cindy Crawford, Linda Evangelista, Claudia Schiffer, and Christy Turlington. They were known as the Big Five during this era, and they were just extremely popular in the 90s. They created this supermodel era where looking like a supermodel was considered tea, you were considered high fashion, you were just considered that girl. These women, they were not just modeling clothes, they were literally celebrities. They were everywhere, on talk shows and commercials, even headlining movies. But if you look at what body type dominated fashion during the Big Fives era, it definitely was not curvy. It was thin, angular, polished, and a flat bum. Then came in Kate Moss during the mid-90s, and she kind of joined the Big Five, so then they became the Big Six, and she was extremely popular during this era as well. She cemented the chick look. I'm not sure if I can say that word properly. I'm going to have to mute it out probably, but what's a word that rhymes with it? Yeah, anyways, just search up Kate Moss and the word that I'm trying to say but I can't say on YouTube will come up, but she cemented that look. But this look featured pale skin, sharp bones, like a sharp jawline. It was giving androgynous vibes, and you had to be very small, like literally no curves at all, just small. And fashion editors loved this because it made the clothes stand out, not the body. So this meant one thing: if you had curves, if you had a butt, then you were definitely not the standard. I am just trying to stress to y'all that having a bunda was not considered tea during this time. It is extremely different to how it is now, and when you think about it, it wasn't even that long ago. Like, I'm telling you, the way that they be switching up and then they be choosing what's attractive and what's not attractive for a decade is just crazy. Like, literally, it's flip-flopping every 2.5 seconds. And this is where the butt sat during the 90s. It wasn't aspirational, it was a punchline. And yes, I do want to mention we did have songs like Baby Got Back. You know that song that was like, I like big butts and I can't not lie. Yes, we had that song in 1992. We had different songs like that, but these songs were seen more as a joke. They weren't really accepted into mainstream media. They were there, like they were super popular because they were catchy, but it was more of like a punchline, a joke. Even if you listen to the lyrics too, like the song sounds like a parody. Literally, he is talking about how he wants a juicy bum and how he's gonna go crazy all night on that bum, if you know what I mean. So those are not lyrics that you would take seriously. The song, you wouldn't take it serious. There are some parts in the song where he is trying, and I say trying with a grain of salt, that he's trying to uplift curvier women and tell them that they are beautiful, because in 1992 we had the Big Five, the Big Six. Those supermodels were really defining that era, and they had slimmer builds, so that was what was popular. So him saying that, nah, I like big butts, was sort of like a cultural protest, but in the end of the day, the song, is it uplifting? Nah. He's talking about how he wants to go cray-cray on the booty, so it's not really uplifting, but I can see where some people might interpret it that way. Even though the song is hyped as body positive, it's still centering women's bodies through the male gaze. It's not really about women feeling good about themselves, it's about what he finds attractive. That tension is important because it shows us how the butt was starting to become a cultural talking point, but not necessarily in a way that gave women control over the narrative. What's also interesting is that the women in the music video, Baby Got Back, they would not be considered to have a big butt in today's day and age, basically. Back then, because they were so focused on smaller bodies, anyone who was above a size 0, they were considered curvy. But now we wouldn't consider them curvy. Like, I would consider the ladies in the Baby Got Back music video, I would say that they're slim. Like, yeah, slim build. Y'all watch the video, let me know what you would consider them as. But I feel like back in the day, they were considered curvy. They were considered like big. And I'm just like, wow, it's just very interesting how these standards change over time. And when we think about it, 1992, like, is that like 30? I am not even gonna try to do math because I'm gonna embarrass myself, but it's not that long ago. That's what I'm trying to get to. That's the point I'm trying to make. But if we shift to the end of the 90s, the whole supermodel era was starting to lose its steam. And there are many theories as to why this happened. Some people said that the designers did not want to pay hefty prices that the Big Five were charging charging. Like apparently they were charging $10,000 per shoot, and designers were like, we don't want to pay all that, F you. And overall, people just thought that the Big 5/Big 6 when Kate Moss came, but they felt that they had too much power within the fashion industry. And as always, eras do not last forever. They have their moment and then they shift on to the next thing. And the next thing was the sexy model, as they called it. And right as this appetite for the sexy model was becoming a thing, that's when Victoria's Secret popped up, and it rebranded what sexy looked like in the fashion industry. Gisele Bündchen popped onto the scene and even graced a Vogue cover literally titled The Return of the Sexy Model. And shortly after that, we had Tyra Banks, Heidi Klum, and Adriana Lima, women who all became household names because of Victoria's Secret. They were labeled as pretty, sexy, and most of all, curvy. And at that time, that word was literally everywhere. Being completely flat was suddenly out. You had to have at least a little bit of shape to be considered desirable. But here's the thing, when we look back, it is actually so wild. These women were sold to us as the new curvy icons, yet their bodies were still extremely slim by today's standards. A study that tracked Victoria's Secret models from 1995 to 2018 showed that their measurements barely changed. Tiny waist, narrow hips, very low dress sizes, and little racial diversity. So yes, curves were being brought into the spotlight, but only in a very specific way. Lingeries, bikinis, and always through the lens of the male gaze. It's also worth noting that Victoria's Secret was founded by a man. His name is Roy Raymond. So how ironic. So even though curves were not fully accepted into high fashion, you can start to see the transition here. The butt was still taboo in a sense that it wasn't fashionable, but it was definitely starting to become commodified around this era. It was not celebrated for women themselves, but it was packaged and sold in music videos, as video vixens, in movies, and just as background characters. So I've touched on the 90s and the 2000s, but before I move on to the 2010s, I want to mention that Victoria's Secret angels, they were not the only influencers during this era, but they definitely were a major one, so low-key, that might be my next video topic. I do want to mention that Destiny's Child, Shakira, Jennifer Lopez, they were very influential at this time because they were all beautiful and they all started to pop off around the same time, like the 90s, early 2000s, especially Jennifer Lopez. When Jennifer Lopez wore that green Versace dress to the 2000s Grammys, literally everyone was talking about it. And apparently Google Images was created after she wore that outfit to the Grammys because everyone wanted to see it. Like the curves were starting to become mainstream. The curves was intriguing to people at that time. So with the rise of Victoria's Secret and these ladies that I've just mentioned, we started to see curvier ladies take over the entertainment industry. However, the beauty standard was still very narrow at this time. You had to have a flat stomach. You could have a booty, thicker thighs, but the stomach had to be flat. That was still the biggest thing. Yes, the media called these women curvier. I mean, yes, we had songs like Bootylicious by Destiny's Child celebrating bums, but it was narrow. You had to fit the criteria or else you would have been considered fat. I know I have mentioned a few songs that were talking about butts during this era, but it's important to note that it was mostly the hip hop scene and R&B that was promoting these types of music. When I say that we had so many songs about butts, we had so many songs about butts. We had, of course, Baby Got Back, I Like Big Butts and I Cannot Lie. We had Bootylicious by Destiny's Child. We had Big Ol' Butt by LL Cool J, which I swear that song is literally a joke. At least Bootylicious was actually a good song you can dance to, you know, like I don't think you're ready for this jelly. Like, it was a good song, but the other ones, like, I could not dance to it. It just felt like a joke. In the Big Ol' Butt song by LL Cool J, he was literally talking about how he's gonna leave his girl for this lady named Tina because she got a big old butt. Like, the lyrics were jokes. Then there was Back That Ass Up by Juvenile, which the song I could, you know, sort of respect a bit more because the beat was good. Like, I like the beat. It was, it was pretty litty. And of course, the music videos of these songs took it a step further because we got to see these bundas live in action and the ladies were doing their thing and they were twerking and they were just being video vixens and we just got to see what big butts looked like in 4K. Actually, no, this time I don't think they had 4K, so not 4K. HD, 720p. Girl, I don't know. So while hip hop made butts cool way before the mainstream fashion industry did, it wasn't always empowering. A lot of it still revolved around men talking about women's bodies rather than women owning the narratives themselves. And I feel like I am being nice when I say that, because to be honest, whenever hip hop, whenever they were talking about butts, it was always through the male gaze. And to think that I was singing all of these songs back in the day, I had no business singing them. Absolutely no business singing them, but they were still sung, and I still slayed it though. But yeah, it was it was a fun time. You know, take me back to before I had to pay bills. Amen. During this era, butts were seen as desirable in the urban culture, but not in mainstream culture. In mainstream culture, they would call you fat. But it didn't remain this way as we approached the 2010s, because a very smart and business savvy family appeared on our screens and basically took over the world. The Kardashians. Their impact is undeniable, and they took our obsession with butts and ran with it. No, they sprinted with it. If there's a word that's meant to be faster than sprint, they did that. But their butts were a huge topic of discussion. Literally everyone was curious if their butts were real or not, especially Kim's, as she was the star of the family for a long time. Now I feel like the fame is evenly dispersed between them, but yeah, at the start, Kim definitely was the star. They combined mainstream media and the popularity of butts in urban culture and created an empire out of it. At the time, this was unheard of. A white woman with a big butt, oh my gosh. Like, it was a shocker to them. And to them, I mean the media. But as we know it, this shock, this curiosity, it worked for the Kardashians / Jenners, and they have been influential in the beauty and fashion world ever since. But of course, we cannot only credit the Kardashians with the rise of BBL culture. BBL culture was / is also connected to the baddie culture, which I have made a video about that, so definitely you should check it out so you can just see how everything is connected. And during the rise of the Kardashians, we had so many other ladies who were also becoming popular as well for their booty cheeks, and that overall contributed to the rise and acceptance of big butts. During the 2010s, we also had a very popular lady pop up on our screens, and that is Miss Nicki Minaj. Many believe she has gone under the knife and gotten a BBL, but she has said that she has gotten butt injections. Nicki really popped off after her song Super Bass dropped, which was my song back in the day. I remember the first time I heard it, I just thought it was like music to my ears. It was music. I just thought it was amazing. I'm pretty sure the first time I heard it was on the Ellen DeGeneres show, but it was a vibe. It's very nostalgic. After this video, I might actually watch the music video again just because I need some nostalgia in my life right now. But that's besides the point. So before the song, Nicki was still making music and she had bangers back in the day too, but she was not mainstream. It wasn't until Super Bass dropped then she became mainstream. And this was in 2011. Also, when she popped off, her butt became a huge part of her brand because everyone was curious if it was real or not, just like Kim Kardashian's. Their butts were so big that the people just wanted to know. The intrigue surrounding Nicki's and Kim's butt 100% boosted their fame, but it's interesting because the way butts were seen in the mainstream had changed. Originally, having a big butt did not mean good things. You were a laughingstock. If your posterior was deemed too big, then they would be like, girl, ew, you got a big booty, get out of here. That was what they were doing. But now, in the 2010s, these ladies were taking that same narrative, but branding it in a way that it was palatable to the mainstream, and it worked. Because they had already fit into the beauty standards, like they were smaller and they fit that 2000s look, they had that extra advantage and were able to use their butts as a tool for their success. The body standard that was starting to become popular in the 2010s, it wasn't a complete difference from the body standard that was popular during the early 2000s. Really, the only difference was having a bigger butt. And this is where the butt economy, as I like to call it, really started to formulate and become what it is today. The butt economy started capturing this shift to butts being seen as natural assets, celebrated, objectified, and commodified in songs, to butts being seen as something that you could buy, modify, and enhance to get that look. It's crucial to mention that Nicki Minaj has done interviews discussing her choice to get these surgical enhancements. She has admitted that the pressure to enhance herself surgically came from men, the industry, and the desire for comparison. So then that does pose the question of, are women getting their butts enhanced for themselves or for men? This has always been a discussion when it comes to the things that women do, whether it's wearing makeup, dressing provocatively, getting your boobs done, getting your butt done. There are always going to be the people who say that women are getting these procedures to get the attention of men. I attempted to answer this question in a video that I did a while ago, so I will link that down below if you are interested. Maybe I'll have to update that video and just answer that question. In Nicki's case, the surgery that she got, she said that it wasn't for herself. She felt the pressure to do that because of the industry and the space that she was in. Remember, the urban space, the hip hop culture, they were promoting bigger bums. And Nicki did not have a bigger bum when she was starting off. So it was definitely an insecurity for her. So the butt became commodified during the 2010s and it turned into a whole economy. Everything was about selling surgeries, clothes, aesthetics, and the whole lifestyle around the look. We had the Fashion Nova clothes, we had the IG baddie aesthetic, the Kardashians contributed to it, the BBLs were everywhere, and it just seemed that your life would be better if you had a big posterior. That was literally the 2010s. But the thing is that, as with every trend, there must always be an end. And are we living in that end right now? Are we seeing firsthand the decline of the butt economy? Part 3. Why the butt economy failed. To start off this section, I wanted to ask y'all a question on Instagram. So I asked, which shows how far the butt obsession went? These were the closest poll results I've ever gotten in my life. Like, y'all were divided. So let's get into it. Yeah, 31% of you said that the Fashion Nova / IG baddie era. And I agree with this because all of the outfits were basically engineered to fit the perfect hourglass figure. To wear the clothes and for it to look good, you had to have that figure. Period. Then 25% of you went with music videos, which also feels accurate as well because this is where we saw a lot of twerking and a lot of slow pan shots that were focused on the booties. So that definitely does make sense. I feel like music videos definitely contributed to that. Then 22% said monetize sexuality, aka like OnlyFans, and another 22% said gym culture. And that's also valid too. Squats were a hot thing for a long time. Like, you would go on Instagram and they would be like, this is how you get a big booty. And you know, they would just be giving you all the squat exercises to do. I remember I was squatting for my life because I knew surgery was not an option for me. So I was like, okay, let me go squat and get this booty right. Get this, yeah, but squatting hurts. But honestly, all of the answers are right. And it just shows you how deep the butt economy ran. And low-key, I know I'm saying that it's declining, but I feel like it is still running because it wasn't just in one lane. It took over music, fashion, the fitness industry, and even entire business models. It was literally everywhere. And speaking of that, I also want to read one of the comments that you guys left for me. So this is Kalia, I think it's that. But anyways, so she said, all of it. It's overwhelming. It's everywhere. It's even in the way we talk, our slang. Also clothes made to accentuate that area. I am honestly sick of it. We cannot escape the butt. And that's so true. All of those answers are right. Everything is linked. The way that the butt economy grew so quickly, there cannot just be one reason why. It is a multitude of factors and they all came together to make the butt everywhere. But thank you all so much for participating in these polls. It always makes the videos interesting. So if you want to be part of a future poll, please make sure you follow me on Instagram so we can kiki it up over there. Let's continue with this section, period. The word trend can mean a lot of things, but usually the way that we use it is to describe a general shift in how people, communities, or even society as a whole think, feel, and behave. Within the last 10 years, quite a chunk of us believed that loud, expressive makeup and Fashion Nova clothes were the epitome of beauty. And of course, how could I forget having a nicely shaped bum? That was big. As I said before, the 2010s was the era when the butt economy really took off. But by the end of the decade, so many people had risen to fame just by attaching themselves to the popularity of having a big butt. While it did work for many, the longevity of their fame has not seemed to stand the test of time. Because here's the thing, looks can get you through the door, but not keep you in the room. And B, we're always on to the next thing. We always want more. We are constantly fed new things every single day and told how we should look. Literally all the time. And it is very overwhelming, but this is how social media is set up right now. Fashion Nova bodies that once dominated the culture just don't hit the same anymore. And there are a few reasons why. Gen Z cares way more about sustainability, and Fashion Nova is literally the definition of fast fashion. People also got tired of the cheap material and the fact that most of the styles were built to be trends, not to be pieces that you would still want in your closet 10 years later. And on top of that, the clothes were made for one body type. It was very frustrating to buy something online, wait for it to arrive, and realize it only looked good if you had that specific Fashion Nova body. And I'm talking about the big boobs, tiny waist, big hips, the hourglass figure. It was exhausting. And on top of all of this, the Kardashians and Jenners and Fashion Nova were basically like this. They were intertwined from 2016 to 2020. The brand might as well have been co-owned by the Kardashians because the rise of the Fashion Nova model archetype also coincided with the rise of the Kardashians. A lot of these ladies' Instagram posts were sponsored by Fashion Nova. The marketing was so effective too because the Kardashians/Jenners, they didn't have to use professional cameras or have a fancy background. All they had to do was look pretty, wear Fashion Nova clothes, and take the photo with their iPhones. And Fashion Nova would spend thousands on them. I will say that it's interesting when wealthy people promote cheap products because we know that you're not using it because you have a lot of money. Why would you buy a $30 dress when you can afford an $800 dress? It's just very interesting. Once we neared the end of the 2010s decade, we had a pretty good knowledge of plastic surgery as a whole. BBLs were more common, other types of surgeries like a nose job, boob job, filler, lip filler, all those type of things. We as the general public, we just had more knowledge about it. So there wasn't as much mystery surrounding the procedures that the Kardashians have got or other people have gotten. Celebrities and influencers were more transparent about the work they had done, which in turn led to an increase in people opting for these procedures. The American Society of Plastic Surgeons reported that 13.1 million cosmetic procedures occurred in 2010, which was a 5% jump from the year before. By 2020, that number climbed to 15.6 million. And when they say cosmetic procedures, they're not just talking about boob jobs. This also includes minimally invasive procedures like laser hair removal, which I have gotten done before. Regardless, there was still an increase in these procedures being done. But the thing about BBLs and cosmetic surgery is that at one point it felt special, almost like a status symbol. But over time, it became so common and attainable that it lost that exclusivity. At a certain point, it seemed like everyone had a BBL. And when everybody has something, people stop caring about it. They want that exclusivity. I talked about this in my facelift video, so check that out too. But when everyone has it, it's no longer aspirational. And these really popular trends, they rely on being aspirational, because if you're not aspirational, then no one's gonna care about it and no one's gonna pay money or pay attention to these trends. It needs to be aspirational. I really believe that everything I talk about in my videos are literally connected. The decline of the butt economy lines up perfectly with the decline of the Instagram baddie aesthetic and the rise of new aesthetics that are more simple and modest and just clean girl vibes. But here's where it gets interesting. I don't know if shift is the right word because maybe these values were always hidden, but now we are starting to see more and more people openly express their conservative views, in real life and online. I'm not gonna dive into politics here, but I do think it's all connected. I do not believe that it was a coincidence that Black culture, Black features, Black music, bigger bums, the baddie aesthetic. I do not believe that it was a coincidence that these were all starting to become popular during President Obama's presidency. He was the 44th president of the United States from 2000 to 2017. And this was peak baddie aesthetic, peak big bum craze. And everyone was trying to dip their toes into Black culture. We had Miley Cyrus, Ariana Grande, Post Malone, Justin Bieber, all of them. But I just want you to know that everything is linked. It's just important to know that. And I guess this is also a good time to bring up my newsletter. So surprise, if you made it to this part in the video, you're available on, because I realized that I write a lot for these videos, so I thought it'd be amazing to post my writings, because I just write them, I talk, and then that's it. But I feel like there's so much more I want to say and just other things I want to write about, but it doesn't make sense to make it a whole video. So I decided to start a newsletter on Substack. I've been writing there for a while now, and I've honestly enjoyed it so much. So make sure you check out my Substack. I will link that down below. And over there, you're going to find some personal essays or essays about like beauty culture and just things that I can't say in these videos, or topics that don't make sense to be a full video. So yeah, I would appreciate it if you go there, check it out. I will have some essays that are free, and then some will be behind a paywall, but it's gonna be a jolly good old time there. So make sure you check me out on Substack. But it's also worth mentioning the rise of thinness and Ozempic, of course. Ozempic is playing a major role in why being skinny is being celebrated again over being curvy or having a big booty. Many celebrities have been accused of using Ozempic or similar drugs, and while most deny it, others have openly endorsed it. Even Serena Williams recently spoke about using it. And that really just tells you how normalized this has become. It's not just Hollywood starlets no more, it's athletes and public figures too. When someone like Serena Williams, who is literally one of the best tennis players of all time, endorses GLP-1, it just changes the conversation, because she literally represents strength and discipline. Yet, even she is turning to medication for weight management. So what does that say for the rest of us? Like a top athlete has to use GLP-1 to manage her weight. So these drugs are not a Hollywood secret anymore. I'm seeing a lot of people on social media everywhere, they're using it. They are becoming mainstream, and that shift is part of why the era of celebrating curves is fading. Thinness is back in style, and this time it's being medically engineered. So, have we been conditioned to obsess over our butts? Yes. Quite frankly, we have been conditioned to obsess over how we look, period. And that definitely includes your posterior. So I hope you have been able to answer this question while watching this video. Why are we so obsessed with our butts? Usually I don't like to answer this question directly, because I want you guys to write your own answers down in the comments below after watching the videos. But all I'm gonna say is that obsessing over our butts generates money. And that's all I'm gonna say. So if you have made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for being here. I truly do appreciate it. It was such a fun video to film, and I can't wait to read your comments on this topic. And let us know, why are we obsessed with booties? Why are you obsessed with your booty? Let us know down below in the comments down below, period. And don't forget to check out my Substack. I'm so excited to just talk to y'all on Substack. I feel like it's gonna be more intimate, more close, and just more tea. So I am totally excited for that. I will catch you all in my next video. Deuces. Bye.